I was 17, stuck in that weird stage of life where every night felt like both freedom and a bad decision. My routine was simple: skate around the city with my friends, waste gas driving in circles, and eat trash food until the sun started peeking through. My parents thought I was either at the library or sleeping over at a friend's. Truth was, I just couldn't stand being home. My dad was always working double shifts. My mom was always too tired to talk. And whenever I tried to say how I felt, I got the usual, "Stop being dramatic, life isn't that hard." So yeah, I stayed out. That Friday started the same way. 4 of us crammed into my buddy Ryan's rusty Ford Taurus, passing around a cheap bottle of vodka we'd stolen from his older brother. Windows down, music way too loud. The city wasn't big, but it felt alive at night. Streetlights buzzing, the occasional siren in the distance, the smell of hot asphalt. We parked behind an old laundromat and sat there talking nonsense until hunger hit us like a wave. "Burger King run," Ryan said, slapping the steering wheel. Everyone agreed. Greasy food at 1 a.m. sounded perfect. When we pulled into the lot, the drive-thru was dark. Figures. So we stumbled inside, laughing too loud, still buzzing from the vodka. The place was almost empty except for 2 workers behind the counter and some guy scrolling on his phone near the door. The overhead lights were way too bright, humming like a dentist's office. That's when I noticed her. She was already at the counter, leaning way too close to the cashier. A heavy-set woman, tall too, maybe 6 feet. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the silence of the restaurant. "I told you no ketchup. Are you deaf or just lazy?" She slammed the burger down on the counter, red streaks smearing the wrapper. We joined the line behind her, trying not to stare, but it was impossible not to. She was relentless, repeating the same thing over and over, demanding the manager. The poor cashier's hands shook as he typed on the register, trying to fix it. 10 minutes passed, maybe more. She didn't let up. The whole place was suffocating under her anger. Ryan whispered, "Bro, she's unhinged." I smirked, and for some reason, maybe the vodka, maybe the fact that I wanted to look funny in front of my friends, I opened my mouth. "Hey," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "On behalf of everyone here, I'd like to apologize for the soundtrack of pig noises tonight." The room went dead quiet. My friends snorted into their sleeves, but no one else laughed. The woman turned and smiled. Not the kind of smile that forgives you. Not even anger. Just this slow, stretched-out grin, like she had been waiting for me to say something. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and started typing. That was the first moment my stomach dropped. We got our food eventually, sliding into a booth on the other side of the restaurant. My friends couldn't stop laughing. "Dude, you roasted her," Ryan kept saying, slapping me on the shoulder. But I wasn't laughing. She was still there, sitting alone by the window, her phone glowing against her face. Every few seconds she'd glance at me, that same smile tugging at her lips. Not angry, not hurt, just patient. I tried to brush it off, unwrapping my Whopper and forcing bites down, but my stomach was in knots. I pulled out my phone. A new message popped up on Instagram. "Nice joke. Hope it was worth it." No username I recognized. Just an empty account with a blank profile picture. I froze. "Yo, you good?" Ryan asked, noticing I'd gone pale. I showed him the message. He laughed. "Bro, it's probably a spam bot. Relax." But then another message came in. "Turn around." I didn't want to. My chest tightened, heart thudding in my ears. But I did. And there she was, still staring, phone in her hand. We finished eating in silence after that. The guys were still whispering and chuckling, but even they seemed uneasy now. When we finally stood to leave, I felt a weird relief, like stepping out of a stuffy room. The second we hit the parking lot, though, I heard it. "There he is. That one." Her voice, calm, loud enough to cut through the air. I turned. She was at the door, pointing straight at me, and stepping out of the shadows was a man. Tall, thick shoulders, shaved head, gray hoodie stained at the chest. He walked with purpose, eyes locked on me. My body went cold. Then I saw what was in his hand. A gun. Everything blurred. 1 second I was standing with my friends. The next the guy was inches from me, pressing cold metal against my chest. My knees buckled and I dropped, the world spinning. "What did you say to her?" he shouted, spit flying. "You think you're funny?" I couldn't speak. My whole body shook so hard I thought my bones would snap. Behind him I saw her. That same smile. Phone still in her hand. Recording. My friends? Gone. Vanished the second the gun came out. I could hear the squeal of Ryan's Taurus peeling out of the lot, leaving me there alone. The man shoved the barrel against my forehead. "Beg! Go on! Beg me!" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I was crying, shoulders heaving. Then I felt warmth spreading down my jeans, my body betraying me. I pissed myself right there on the concrete. He noticed, smirked. "Pathetic. You don't even deserve to die standing up." That line, it burned into me, carved into my brain. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Red and blue flashes painted the Burger King windows. The woman's smile faltered. She tugged at his sleeve, whispering something I couldn't hear. He hesitated, eyes darting, then bolted. She followed. The gun disappeared into the night with them. The cops swarmed seconds later. They found me on my knees, soaked, shaking, barely able to talk. I thought that was the end, that the cops would track them down, that I'd never have to see those faces again. But it didn't play out that way. At the station, they asked me the same questions over and over. What did he look like? What did she say? Was I drinking? I told them everything, but the looks on their faces said it all. Drunk teenagers aren't reliable witnesses. When my parents picked me up, I expected comfort, maybe even pride that I'd survived. Instead, my dad's jaw was tight, my mom's eyes sharp. "You were drinking again?" she snapped before I even got in the car. I tried to explain, but they cut me off. "You made it up," Dad said flatly. "You embarrassed yourself, you embarrassed us, and now you're trying to cover it with some story about a gun." They grounded me for a month, took my phone, said I needed to earn back their trust. But none of that mattered. What mattered was what I kept seeing every night when I closed my eyes. Her smile, his words, the gun. And then came the message. Not on Instagram this time, but slipped into my backpack at school. No name, no number. Just a folded piece of paper. "Next time your friends won't leave fast enough." I showed my parents. They rolled their eyes. "Probably a prank," my mom muttered. "Kids being kids." But I knew. She was still out there, and she was still smiling. I never thought much about my job at Burger King. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid rent and kept me from asking my mom for help. My name's Eric, 22, and I'd been on evening shifts for nearly a year. The routine was always the same. Clock in at 4, prep the fryers, deal with the dinner rush, and then clean up until closing at 11. Most nights blended together. Customers came, ordered, left. Sometimes I'd sneak a free soda. Sometimes my manager, Tom, would grumble about hours being cut. It was boring, predictable. But on a Thursday in March, things stopped being boring. That night, the restaurant was almost empty by 9:30. A couple of kids were playing on their phones in a booth. A woman with earbuds was scrolling through something at the counter, and my coworker Jess was mopping near the back. Tom sat in his office pretending to do paperwork but probably watching YouTube. I was restocking napkins when I noticed someone walk in. He didn't look like a customer. Tall guy, maybe late 30s, shaved head, wearing a gray hoodie with the strings chewed up. He didn't go to the counter, didn't even glance at the menu. He just sat down at a corner booth with nothing in his hands. No phone, no food, nothing. Jess leaned over and whispered, "Creeper vibes." I laughed it off, but I kept glancing at him. Every time I did, he was staring at me. Not at Jess, not at the kids, just me. His face was blank, like he was waiting for something. I finally forced myself to go over. "Hey man, you need to order if you're staying inside." He tilted his head slow, like he was trying to process my words. Then he smiled, but it wasn't friendly. His teeth were yellow, lips cracked. "I already know what I want," he said. "Okay," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "So, what do you want?" He didn't answer. He just leaned back in the booth, that same smile stretching wider. I walked away, pretending it didn't bother me. But I could feel his eyes burning into my back the whole time. Around 10 p.m., most customers had cleared out. Jess left early, and it was just me, Tom, and the guy in the hoodie still sitting in the corner. He hadn't ordered a single thing. Tom finally noticed. "Eric, tell him he's got to leave. We're closing in an hour." I didn't want to. My hands were shaking, but I grabbed a rag to make it look casual as I walked over. "Hey man, store's closing soon. You need to head out." This time he leaned forward. His eyes were bloodshot, watery, like he hadn't slept in days. "I used to work here," he said. His voice cracked, almost like he was trying not to cry. "Oh, really?" I asked carefully. He nodded. "Right here, this booth. Every break I sat here, before they fired me." I froze. Nobody had mentioned a fired employee. Sorry to hear that." "They said I scared people," he whispered, his voice low, like he was telling me a secret. "Said I made them uncomfortable. I didn't scare anyone. Did I scare you?" I swallowed hard. "Look, man, I don't..." Before I could finish, he slammed his hand on the table so hard the whole booth rattled. The sound echoed through the empty dining room. I jumped back, heart racing. Tom stormed out of the office, face red. "Sir, you need to leave now or I'm calling the cops." The man stared at Tom for a long second, then stood up. He was taller than both of us by a head. He started walking toward the door, but as he passed me, he leaned in close enough for me to smell the stale sweat on his hoodie. "This place is mine," he whispered. "You'll see." Then he walked out. Tom tried to laugh it off, muttering about lunatics, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. For the rest of the shift, I kept glancing at the windows, half expecting his face to appear. 2 nights later, I pulled into the Burger King parking lot for another shift. The first thing I noticed was the red writing on the dumpster out back. Large, uneven letters. "Thieves." I told Tom right away, but he shrugged. "Just graffiti, probably kids." But then, halfway through the night, a customer pointed at the windows. Stuck on the glass, facing inward, was a Polaroid photo. It was me, wiping down tables, taken through the window. I froze. My stomach dropped. Jess whispered, "That's so messed up." Tom pulled the photo down and crumpled it. "We'll handle it. Don't freak out." But I couldn't calm down. Someone had stood outside, camera pressed to the glass, while I worked. When I got home that night, there was a note taped to my apartment door. No envelope, just a folded piece of paper. Inside was one sentence, written in messy, slanted handwriting. "I know your routine." My chest tightened. I didn't tell my mom, didn't tell Jess. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But when my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. with a text from an unknown number, my hands shook so bad I almost dropped it. The text said, "Back booth. Tomorrow." I almost didn't go into work the next day, but I needed the money, and part of me thought maybe it was all in my head. Maybe it was a prank. The store was quiet again, almost too quiet. At 9:15, the door opened, and he walked in. Same gray hoodie, same cracked smile. He went straight to the back booth and sat down, waiting. My legs felt like they were full of cement. Tom was in the office. Jess was off that night. It was just me and him. Finally, I forced myself over. "You can't be here," I said, my voice shaking. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I told you," he said softly. "This place is mine. You're just keeping it warm." Before I could respond, he reached into his hoodie. My heart nearly stopped. I thought he was pulling out a weapon. Instead, he set something on the table. Another Polaroid. This one was of me leaving my apartment building that morning. I stumbled back. How the hell did you... The man stood towering over me. Soon, Eric. Soon you'll understand. At that exact moment, Tom walked out of the office. The man slipped past him, out the door, vanishing into the night. I quit the next morning. I didn't care about rent or money. I couldn't go back. But 2 weeks later, I found another Polaroid in my mailbox. It was my bedroom window, taken from the outside, and written on the back in the same messy handwriting was one word: closer. I wasn't the kind of guy who thought much about danger. My life was simple: work, home, and Saturdays with my daughter Emily. She was 9, small but tough, with blonde hair she refused to brush and a stubborn streak that reminded me way too much of her mom, Laura. The divorce had been finalized a year earlier, and though Laura never made it easy, I fought to keep weekends with Emily. Our little tradition was Burger King every Saturday afternoon. It wasn't about the food. It was about having something that belonged just to us. That Saturday was like any other. We slid into our usual booth by the window, the one with a peeling edge that Emily always picked at. She drowned her fries in ranch while telling me about some girl drama from school. I was halfway through a Whopper when I noticed him, someone in the Burger King mascot outfit standing near the soda machines. At first, I figured it was some promo thing. The plastic face, the robe, the stupid grin. It should have been funny. But the costume was dirty. The cape looked torn at the bottom, and the mask had smudges across the cheeks like dried mud. Or worse. Emily noticed him too. "Dad, he's not moving." She whispered it, her hand frozen over her fries. I tried to play it off. Probably just an employee messing around. But he wasn't acting like an employee. He wasn't handing out balloons or talking to kids. He just stood there, angled toward us, watching. When we left, I locked the car doors immediately. Emily buckled in quick, her eyes darting back to the glass doors of the restaurant. The mascot was still inside. He tilted his head as we pulled away. My chest tightened, but I forced a laugh. "See? Just a guy in a suit. Nothing to worry about." Emily didn't answer. She just stared out the window the whole ride home. The next week, Emily refused to go. She flat out cried when I brought it up. "I don't want to see him again, Dad," I told Laura, thinking maybe she'd understand. Instead, she blew up at me. "You're making her soft," she snapped over the phone. "You let one weirdo in a costume scare her away from a fast food place? That's pathetic." I wanted to argue, but I was tired. Tired of the fights, tired of proving myself as a dad. So the following Saturday, I convinced Emily to give it another try. "It'll be daytime, crowded, safe, just one more shot, okay?" The place was packed when we went back. Kids were running around, parents looked half asleep, and everything felt normal. Emily relaxed, even laughed at one of her own bad jokes. For a moment, it felt like things were back to how they used to be. Until we left. The second we stepped into the parking lot, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, steady, behind us. I turned, and there he was. The mascot. Except this time, he was outside, walking straight toward us. One gloved hand holding a balloon and the other clutching something metal. It caught the sunlight, a wrench maybe. "Dad?" Emily's voice cracked. "Get in the car." My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys. The figure picked up the pace, the wrench swinging at their side. I shoved Emily into the passenger seat, slammed the lock down, and got behind the wheel just as the mascot reached us. Bang! The wrench smashed against the glass. Emily screamed. I peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. In the rear view, the figure stood frozen, the balloon bobbing in the air. We went straight to the police station. They took a report but didn't seem worried. "Probably some punk playing a prank," one officer said. But it didn't feel like a prank. Not to me. Weeks passed. I thought maybe it was over. Emily still refused Burger King, and I didn't push it. Life went back to its messy version of normal. Until one night, Emily spotted him again. We were driving home from the grocery store when she gasped, "Dad, look!" At the corner of our street, under the dim yellow streetlight, stood the mascot. Same filthy costume, same frozen grin, a red balloon in hand. I hit the gas, heart pounding. Emily cried in the back seat. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the figure was gone. The next morning, I stepped outside and froze. A balloon was tied to our mailbox, scrawled across it in thick black marker, "Soon." I called the cops again. They searched around, shrugged, said they'd keep an eye out. That didn't help me sleep any better. I bought cameras, set up motion lights. I kept Emily home more often, made excuses to Laura, who accused me of trying to cut her out of Emily's life. "You're paranoid, Matt. Get over yourself." But then came the night that proved me right. We were watching TV when the power cut out. Total darkness swallowed the house. Emily grabbed my arm, trembling. I handed her a flashlight. "Stay in your room. Lock the door." I went to check the back door and froze. Through the glass in the pale moonlight stood the mascot, in our yard, the wrench dangling from his hand. I slammed the door and locked it, my hands shaking. Then crash. The living room window shattered. Emily screamed from down the hall. My legs moved before my brain caught up. He was inside. The mascot stepped through the broken window, shards crunching under heavy boots. The mask stared at me, the grin permanent. My pulse thundered. I grabbed the baseball bat by the couch and swung. The bat cracked against his shoulder, but he didn't drop. He lunged, swinging the wrench. It missed my head by inches. We struggled, the bat clattering to the floor. I shouted for Emily to stay in her room, but I could hear her crying. I thought I was done for, until headlights flashed through the window. A car pulled up outside, then a horn, loud, long. The mascot froze. For a second, it was like he was deciding. Then he bolted, out the window, into the night. By the time I scrambled outside, he was gone. Just gone. The cops came, took pictures, promised to patrol more often. But I knew better. He wasn't finished. 2 nights later, I got a text from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. Emily at school, sitting with her lunch tray, smiling at a friend. My stomach dropped. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I looked out the window, half expecting to see that plastic grin staring back. And now, every knock at the door, every random car parked on the street, every balloon drifting by, it all makes my chest tighten because he's still out there. And he's watching. I never thought much about working late nights at Burger King. Honestly, it wasn't my dream job, but it fit my schedule. I'd been at that store for a few months, mostly closing shifts, and by now I knew the rhythm of the place. Evenings were busy, then it would taper off until maybe 1 or 2 customers trickled through in an hour. After 11 p.m., the drive-thru was the only thing open, and most of the time it was delivery drivers or drunk college kids grabbing food on their way home. I didn't mind it. The pay wasn't great, but nights were quiet, and I actually liked being left alone. The manager trusted me to handle things, and usually there was just one other employee in the kitchen, but they mostly kept to themselves. My station was the headset for the drive-thru. Most nights I just leaned on the counter, scrolled through my phone between orders, and watched the parking lot lights flicker through the big front windows. That particular week had been dragging. Nothing exciting ever happened, and maybe that's why I noticed the man right away. He came through the drive-thru around midnight. His car looked beat up, the kind of thing that barely runs but somehow still does. When I said the usual, "Welcome to Burger King, what can I get you?" There was silence for a second, then a low chuckle before he finally ordered a Whopper and a soda. Nothing unusual. Except when he pulled up, he didn't hand me his card right away. He just stared at me through the window for a few seconds, this crooked grin on his face like he already knew me. I forced a smile and gave him his total. He slid the cash over, slow, keeping eye contact the whole time. When I handed him his food, he leaned closer and said quietly, almost like he was testing me, "You're still working here, huh?" I froze for a second. I'd never seen him before in my life. I just gave a polite laugh and said, "Yeah, still here." He grinned wider, then said, "Don't worry, I'll come inside next time." Before I could respond, he drove off. The next night I was on shift again. I didn't expect him to come back, but sure enough, a little after midnight, I saw the same beat-up car rolling into the drive-thru. This time he didn't order right away. I said the greeting twice before he finally answered. His voice was calm but slow, dragging out the words. He ordered the exact same thing as before. When he pulled up, I felt my stomach sink. He leaned against the window again, eyes fixed on me like he was studying every detail. He didn't even take the bag from my hand at first, just sat there with his arm hanging out the window, smiling. "You're here every night, huh?" he said. I didn't answer right away, just nodded and pushed the bag toward him. He finally took it, but instead of leaving, he asked, "So what time do you get off?" I forced another polite laugh. "Pretty late," I said, hoping that would shut him down. But it didn't. He just smirked, like he'd gotten the answer he wanted. Then he added, "I'll see you soon." The way he said it didn't sound casual. It sounded like a promise. He didn't come inside that night. But when I looked out toward the parking lot an hour later, I could swear I saw that same car parked under a light, engine off. By the third night, I told myself I was imagining things. Customers came and went all the time. But then, a little after midnight, I saw his car again. This time, though, he didn't use the drive-thru. I was at the counter inside when I saw him walk through the front doors. No one else was in the lobby. It was almost closing for that section. And the guy headed straight for the counter, hands in his pockets. Up close, he looked worse than before. Pale skin, messy stubble, and these bloodshot eyes that never blinked enough. He leaned on the counter and didn't even pretend to look at the menu. "You're hard to miss," he said softly. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can I take your order?" He didn't answer. He just tilted his head and said, "You shouldn't be here so late by yourself. Anything could happen." My coworker was in the back, too far to hear. For a second, I didn't know what to do. I tried to keep it professional, repeating the order line again. Finally, he ordered something small, but he never took his eyes off me while I rang it up. When I handed him the bag, his fingers brushed against mine, deliberate. I yanked my hand back and he smiled. Before leaving, he said, "Maybe I'll walk you to your car tonight." My stomach dropped. After that, I couldn't relax. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow near the window felt like him. By closing time, I was shaking, trying to convince myself he'd just leave. But when I stepped outside into the empty parking lot, the first thing I saw was his car, parked across the lot, headlights off. I froze. The distance between the back door and my own car felt like a mile. I glanced around. No one else was there. My coworker had left earlier. It was just me and him. I tried to act normal, walking quickly but steady toward my car. As I got closer, I heard a door open. My heart started pounding. I didn't dare look back. I unlocked my car with shaking hands, threw myself inside, and hit the lock button. That's when I saw him. He was standing a few spaces away, just outside the glow of the light pole, watching me. Not moving, just standing there like he was waiting. I started the engine and his smile stretched across his face. I drove out of that lot faster than I ever had in my life. The next night I called in sick. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever go back. Because the truth is, I don't think he was just a random customer. And I don't think he's finished with me. I wasn't planning to be out that late, but work had run over again. I'd been pulling long hours at the warehouse lately, extra shifts, saving for a car that wasn't falling apart every time I hit the highway. My old Civic rattled like it was held together with duct tape, but it got me from point A to point B, and right now point B was food. I hadn't eaten since noon, and by the time I left work, my stomach was screaming at me. I spotted a Burger King off the main road just outside of Bakersfield. It wasn't crowded, just the kind of dead-hour vibe that always makes fast food places feel a little off. Fluorescent lights humming, the smell of fryer oil lingering like it never left. A couple sat in the corner booth, barely talking. A guy in a neon work vest was slumped over his tray, scrolling on his phone. Behind the counter, a bored-looking teenager with acne tapped his pen against the register. I ordered quick, double cheeseburger, fries, large soda, and grabbed a booth near the back. My hands still smelled faintly like cardboard and dust from stacking pallets all day. I unwrapped my burger, but the second I bit into it, a sharp cramp twisted my stomach. Great. Figures. I'd been running on energy drinks all week. My body finally decided to protest. "Bathrooms back there," the cashier said when I asked, pointing down a narrow hallway. The hallway felt different, quieter, like the noise from the dining area didn't quite follow me. The men's room door creaked when I pushed it open. It was the usual setup: 2 stalls, a urinal, sink, cracked mirror with the words "wash me" etched into the glass with a key or something. I stepped into the first stall, locked it, sat down, and tried to breathe through the stomach pain. That's when I heard it. The door opened again. Footsteps. Slow ones. At first I didn't think much, someone else coming in. But the sound wasn't right. The steps didn't head to the urinal or stall. They stopped, right in front of mine. I froze. The shoes under the door. Heavy black boots, laces frayed, the kind of shoes you'd notice. Whoever it was, they just stood there, not moving, not saying anything. I held my breath, suddenly hyper-aware of how thin the metal stall walls were. Then I heard it. Click. Like a lighter being flicked. No flame, just the sound. Once, twice, over and over. The sound of that lighter clicking echoed in the tiled bathroom. Click, 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 over and over, steady and patient, like whoever was on the other side had all the time in the world. I stayed perfectly still, not even breathing too loud, hoping maybe they'd lose interest and leave. But the boots didn't shift. They stayed planted, toes pointed directly toward my stall. Finally, I forced myself to clear my throat. It's occupied." No answer. Just another flick of that lighter. Click. Something about the silence was worse than if he'd said something. My palms were sweating, my stomach ache forgotten. I slowly leaned forward and peered through the thin crack between the door and the stall frame. A man. Late 30s maybe, his face partially shadowed under a dirty baseball cap. His hand toyed with the lighter, thumb pressing down on the wheel and letting it snap back. His lips moved slightly, like he was whispering something to himself, but I couldn't hear the words. "Hey," I said again, louder this time, trying to sound firm. "Can you back up?" Nothing, just that lighter. My chest tightened. I considered just kicking the stall door open and bolting, but what if he was waiting for that? Then, without warning, he bent down. His head lowered until one bloodshot eye peered directly through the gap under the stall. I jerked back so hard my shoulder slammed the metal partition. "What the hell, man?" That eye didn't blink. It just stared. Then finally, he whispered. His voice was hoarse, like gravel in his throat. "You're not supposed to be here." Before I could react, the restroom door opened again. The sound of another pair of footsteps echoed in. The man in the boots straightened instantly, flicked his lighter shut, and stepped back. When I dared to peek through the crack again, he was gone. The door creaked closed behind him, leaving only the faint smell of burnt fuel hanging in the air. I sat there, heart pounding in my ears, trying to process what just happened. Maybe he was just some weirdo. Maybe I overreacted. But no, the way he stared, the way he whispered, it felt personal, I waited a few minutes, then cautiously opened the stall. The bathroom was empty. The sink dripped steadily, the only sound. I washed my hands quickly, staring at myself in the cracked mirror. My face looked pale, damp with sweat. When I stepped back into the hallway, the dining area looked normal again. A family had come in with 2 kids. The couple in the corner was gone. The worker in the neon vest was still there, but the man with the boots? Nowhere. I tried to shake it off, sat back at my booth, and unwrapped my fries. Maybe it was nothing. But when I glanced at the window beside me, my stomach dropped. Parked outside, directly facing the glass, was a beat-up pickup truck. Behind the wheel, barely visible under the dim lot light, sat the man in the boots, and he was watching me eat. I froze with the fry halfway to my mouth, staring at that truck. He wasn't moving, just sitting there in the driver's seat, hat low, shoulders stiff. The neon lot light caught on the curve of his lighter as he spun it slowly in his hand, thumb flicking the wheel without sparking a flame this time. I looked around the diner. Nobody else seemed to notice him. The worker in the neon vest was absorbed in his phone, the family was too busy with their kids, and the cashier had disappeared into the kitchen. I was the only one who saw him. I told myself, just leave, walk out the side door, call a friend, get out of here. But as soon as I slid out of my booth, headlights from the truck flicked on, washing the window in blinding white. I sat right back down. My chest was tight, my knees bouncing uncontrollably. The fries in front of me tasted like cardboard now. Minutes passed. The family finished and left. The worker stood, stretched, and shuffled out. Soon, the diner was almost empty, and the silence pressed down on me again. I tried not to look outside, but curiosity kept dragging my eyes back. The truck hadn't moved an inch. When the cashier finally came back out front, I forced myself to get up. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice low. "Do you know that guy out there in the pickup?" She glanced outside, squinted, then shook her head. "Truck's been there a while." "Yeah." "Why?" I hesitated. "He's been staring at me. He followed me into the bathroom earlier." Her face shifted, a flicker of concern, but she quickly smoothed it over with a forced smile. I'll let my manager know, all right?" I nodded, though I could tell she wasn't going to. When I stepped outside, the night air was thick and heavy, smelling faintly of oil and rain-soaked pavement. The truck's engine roared to life instantly. My hands shook as I unlocked my car. The second I opened the door, headlights flared again, brighter, closer now. I climbed in, fumbling with the keys, heart racing. The truck pulled forward a few feet, just enough to block my path to the exit. That lighter clicked again, this time glowing faintly in the cab as he lit a cigarette. His face illuminated for a second, sharp and hollow, eyes fixed right on me. I gripped the steering wheel. If I was going to get out of here, I had one choice: floor it and hope he moved. I slammed the keys into the ignition, engine coughing awake. My pulse hammered in my throat as I shifted into gear. The truck didn't budge, its headlights glaring directly into mine. I revved the engine once, twice, nothing. He was daring me. Finally, I stomped on the gas. My car lurched forward, tires squealing. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd smash right into him. But at the very last second, his truck swerved aside, letting me burst out onto the empty highway. My hands clutched the wheel so hard they hurt. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, praying I wouldn't see those headlights again. For the first few miles, nothing. Just the endless stretch of asphalt and the occasional flicker of neon signs in the distance. Then, in the mirror, 2 tiny white dots appeared, growing brighter, closer. "No, no, no," I whispered, pressing harder on the gas. The speedometer climbed past 80. The truck matched me, headlights swaying in the darkness. Every turn I took, he followed. Every attempt to lose him, he stayed right there, steady, patient, like he knew exactly where I was headed. My chest ached from holding my breath. I spotted an exit up ahead, a small unlit road leading off into nothing. I swerved onto it, gravel spitting under my tires. The truck's headlights vanished in the mirror. I slowed, finally letting myself breathe. My whole body shook with relief. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd lost him. But as I rounded a bend, my headlights washed over something up ahead. Parked sideways across the road was the same pickup truck. Its hazard lights blinked red in the night, steady, taunting. And there he was, standing in front of it, boots planted on the gravel, lighter clicking in his hand. I slammed the brakes so hard my seatbelt dug into my chest. My car skidded to a stop just yards away from him. The lighter flared once, briefly lighting up his face in the dark. Then the flame went out, and I realized there was no way around him.